Oh, I see David is joining us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Professor.
Yep. I'm
Hi.
waiting a second. Yeah, I'm with
Good
you.
afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. I'm Merav. We emailed briefly, and this is Jose. He's the CEO of Bloom Consulting, and he'll be conducting the interview. I just wanted to say thank you again for agreeing to joining us for this interview and for participating in the research. And I think it'll be interesting. We're getting a lot of different answers from different people, and I think we're going to have some very interesting results. So
Please remind me, what are we talking about?
so that's I'm leaving that to Jose. He'll be the best person to do that.
Okay.
Professor, it's a pleasure to meet you. So as Mehav explained, I'm the CEO and I'm the founding partner of Bloom Consulting. Bloom Consulting is a specialized country branding consultancy. So we're specialized in working with perceptions about countries and understanding how and what the image that these countries have and the perceptions that that they have or people have about them, how it influences different target audiences. So what you think about a country influences your willingness to invest, to buy from, to visit, to study, live, work, and so on. We have been commissioned by Vibe Israel in 2018 to understand how the world sees Israel and how is this affecting their willingness to potentially visit, to potentially live and work in Israel, and also just to understand this overall perception about the country. Now, this year and these are the majority of what we call dimensions where the brand or the perception has an impact. But we now are going to mirror this from the economic perspective. So there was something that was not done in 2018. We focused mainly in tourism, talent, and prominence, as we call it, which is a general reputation. And this year, we're going to focus on the economic side. So the perception of the country, how to work on the perception of the country so that the country can do better or do more or do even better from an economic point of view. So to export or to attract foreign direct investment. So that's what we're doing is exactly that, is to develop the country brand strategy for the Israeli economy, to simplify things. Yeah? So the project has three main phases. So the first phase is research, and that's where we're in. And the research contemplates how the world sees Israel, and specifically how business leaders and business decision makers see Israel, and how the reality about the country. The reality about the country, we are gathering this from stakeholder interviews. So key stakeholders in Israel, not just in Israel, but live in Israel or have a deep knowledge about the country. And that's what we're doing now. And based on this reality versus perception, we will then conclude what is the strategic direction, move on to phase 2, which is the strategy, and the third phase is the rollout and the implementation. So this is an interview that I'm just recording for our internal purposes. This will not be made public to anywhere else, to anyone. And if that's okay with you, we will just
okay. Yeah. It's okay. Just send me the recording. So
yes, of course. Yes, of course. Yeah, okay, I have. We can do that after, yeah? Perfect. So, Professor, this is just the quick introduction. I have a questionnaire.
So the methodology is interviews with key people in Israel first.
Yeah. From the business sector, so business sector, academia, key stakeholders like influential stakeholders in Israel. That's one side. That's the Israeli reality. Let's put it this way. Okay. And that's the
government as well. Government
as well. Public institutions as well, exactly, from the government, different ministries, and we are contrasting this with a quantitative analysis where we're performing a survey of approximately 3,000 people, plus other technologies that we use to assess what people are searching online about Israel. So we then contrast the two, the perceptions versus the reality. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have a questionnaire actually, and I'm going to just ask you a couple of questions that are just standard questions, so they won't be groundbreaking, but it's important that we have your opinion about these questions, because we just want to quantify this in terms of like repetition, just to see what all stakeholders are saying, just to say if everyone is, or the majority is saying this, or the majority is saying that. But I will then skip the questionnaire, and I'll just like to open a conversation with you, because you're a different stakeholder than the rest, and we're more interested in understanding, and not about the reality, but much more about the future. And I think we're talking to the right person about the future, and I'd like to open that conversation with you, and more to listen than to ask anything, right? So just really to pick your brains on this, and
Merav, you are located in Israel.
No, I'm not
Yes,
located in Israel.
no, Jose is. We are, and Jose isn't. So.
Exactly. So Vibe Israel, the institution that is managing this, yes, it's an Israeli company. That's what I have.
Israeli nonprofit, non-political nonprofit.
Okay.
We do mostly, we do different initiatives for country branding and for promoting Israel, mostly in the digital world. We do a lot of influencer delegations. We're doing a project with the president now about like shared Israeliness and how we can kind of take the cultural diversity in Israel and kind of bring it to the world as a positive thing, and also to Israelis so they feel kind of proud about our culture. So we're doing a lot of different things. And this is one of them, and we're very excited. This is kind of a new territory for us, so we're excited about it.
And you, where are you located?
So I'm located in, so the company has several offices. So the head office is in Madrid, and we have offices also in London, and in São Paulo, in Brazil, and in Lisbon. I'm in Lisbon. I'm originally Portuguese. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right then. So again, I'm just going to ask you a couple of standards, not interesting questions for you, but interesting questions for us. And then I'll just start this conversation with you, that so I can pick your brains. Okay. So I don't know. Do you have any questions before I start?
No. If I have, I'll ask.
Okay. Great. So the first thing I'd like to ask is, when I ask you, from your perception, your perspective, when I say the name Israel, from a business perspective, what image, concept, idea pops into your mind?
It's a very vibrant community to be part of. The economic community, I mean, the business communities in general in Israel, very discursive, very interconnected, with a lot of opportunities. If you know how to maneuver the connections in Israel, there are a lot of opportunities. Overall, there is that feeling that there are a lot of opportunities economically in Israel, but since it's a very new country and it's growing very rapidly, if you are familiar with the intricacies of bureaucracy and of course the culture, etc., then a lot of things might be available to you to be part of, at least not to own everything, but to be part of.
Very good.
This is one thing that comes to mind. The other thing that comes to mind is that you have to be part of the culture to be able to maneuver it. You cannot be an outsider. As an outsider, it will be much harder for you. So it's best thing to do is to partner with somebody within the culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the second thing that is coming to mind. And the other thing, which is everybody is speaking about, we are in a transition phase from socialism to capitalism, and there's a lot of bureaucracy, and there is a lot of barriers, if you wish, that if you are not familiar how to maneuver through, between those barriers or above those barriers, it will be very difficult for you. So these are the three things that I have in mind immediately.
Very
This
good.
is what
Very
you are
good.
looking for, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
All
it.
right,
That's
all
exactly
right.
it. Just like when I say this is what pops into your mind. And can you tell me, like, I'll skip a couple questions here that I'm, again, the ones that I think are interesting. Um, can you tell me what are the three characteristics of an Israeli business person?
Very cunning,
Yeah.
very uh, detailed oriented, skeptical,
Hmm.
and would like to maximize benefits and revenues. Uh, if I can be blunt, even though I'm not, I don't want to be blunt, but I would be blunt here. Um, the typical uh, Jewish archetype
Yeah. Okay.
that was developed during millennia is coming to play, but there is a new level, a new tier that characterizes the Israeli businessman.
Hmm.
Um, very friendly.
So you think that this is a trend? So it's changing into something different?
Yes, there is uh, that layer of doing business not just for financial benefits and
Okay.
revenues, but for the sake of history, if you wish. There is that aura that surrounds a lot of people, not all of them, but there surrounds a lot of people willing to take risks in order to develop the country.
Yeah.
Not to develop the country for just the benefit, but for a lot of people really feel the historical moment
Hmm.
of rejuvenation, of coming back after 2,600 years of the destruction of the first attempt to build a nation here. We are just at the same at this the week that we commemorate the destruction of the first temple. If you are
Okay.
not aware of it, it's the day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's part of the subconsciousness of people.
Okay. Very good. So, but the question was, you said cunning, detail oriented, and also skeptical. Do you think that this new generation is also the same way, or you think is this a characteristic that you think belongs to the past and the present, and it will continue to be in the future? Or you think there will be some deviations, or it's migrating into a different direction?
Yeah, there is a difference between the first, second, and third generation of businessmen.
Yeah.
You know, we are becoming much more professionals in our business dealings. It used to be, networks of people, and
Yeah.
still there is a lot of networks. A lot of things are are coming to be fruitful just because of the networks.
Hmm.
But the more we progress, the more you see a very strategic thinking, professional strategic thinking of regarding any business opportunity.
Very good.
And it will be much better. The more we grow, the more the country will be much
Okay.
much developed.
Okay. Now I'm coming through. I have two questions that talk a lot about. I think talk a little bit about what the things you're talking about. But it's a twofold question. So the first question is about the present, and and then it's going to go into the future. Okay, and that's where I want to pick your brains. When we see Israel and when we look at the Israeli economy, if you can talk to me a little bit about, or the country as a whole, if you can talk to me about, so don't worry if it's too sector specific or anything like that. I just want is like overall, right? As a country, what are the main advantages and disadvantages beyond tax breaks, bureaucracy, these kinds of things? But conceptually speaking, what are the bigger advantages and disadvantages? And how do you see this evolving into the future? And where do you think there's an opportunity for Israel? And you can cherry pick the question here. You can go just for one thing, just for two, as you want. But I'm very interested to understand the reality, understanding where the future is and how Israel is evolving there.
There is one very clear characteristics that characterizes the Israeli population with a lot of potential for growth and opportunities. We are probably the only nation, a Western and industrialized nation among those nations, that about 45% of our population is in the first cohort of age-wise, which means 45% of the Israeli population sits at the age of birth, between birth to 25 years old. Okay, this characterizes mainly the third, how should we call it, the most retarded, if you wish, business-wise, of course, nations. So this is something which is unusual. Mm-hmm. In most of the Western industrialized countries, that part of the population is a very small part, between 10 to, at the best, 15%. Here we have 45%, so it's a huge potential, because that age group will enter their epoch, their era of massive consumption. The massive consumption age in our societies nowadays is between 36 to 46. Mm-hmm. That's when we really buy our big tickets items. Mm-hmm. So there is a great potential in the Israeli economy. So this is overall speaking, okay? And it doesn't matter which culture within Israeli different groups you are speaking about. On the contrary, the people that are really doing a lot of expenditures are, meaning buying a lot of houses and the mobility, etc., are those that are in the lower level of the economic echelon. So it doesn't matter which group you are, there is a great potential for growth in Israel compared to other people. That's one thing. The other thing, which is, I believe, much more crucial, the fertility rate of the Israeli community is the highest among the Western and industrialized countries. We are speaking now of 3.2 kids for each female, and it doesn't matter. This is among all groups. There are groups that have much more than that, and other groups, very little groups, have less than that. Okay, most of the Western and industrialized countries, most of them have the replacement rate in the negative aspect, okay, which is 2.1. So this is one more thing. So Israelis are growing faster than many other countries, which means that Israel probably will double its population by the year 2050. Okay, we are now around 9 million people. By 2050, we will be about 60 million people. Okay, this is the only nation that is going to almost double its population in the next 30 years, which means we will have to build another country in a matter of 30 years. And it will be much advanced and much, let's say, international and globalized and technologically, advanced, etc., etc. This is in the next 30 years. There is another trend that is also very unique to Israel. All the studies I'm aware of speak that by the end of the 21st century, Israel will triple its population. Will reach about 20.
Year? Sorry, again, which year?
By the end of 21st century.
Okay.
Okay, 2100. So we will triple our population, which means we'll be around 24, 25 million people. Very packed in a small piece of land. So we will have to be very advanced in order to sustain a very 21st century kind of a society. That means we will need a lot of technologies to sustain that growth. We will need different kinds of technologies of mobility. So probably we'll be one of the first nations that will adopt autonomous cars, for example. Okay, as we are adopting a lot of other things. That's another issue, and there is one thing that nobody is speaking about. Probably you've heard what I've just said from other people. Otherwise, nobody knows what I'm speaking about, so that's something else. There is something which is really, I believe, gives Israeli economy a lot of advantages. The land is very small, which means we don't need a lot of investments in infrastructure and infrastructures generally in order to have a very cohesive populate that is economically very viable. And it's not like any other country that they need that, to put kilometers upon kilometers of roads just to connect cities. Okay, and that, by the way, this is also one of our advantage in terms of security. Okay, we don't need a large body of security services, meaning specifically the army.
Yeah, military.
Because we can move troops between borders. And that's what we did during all our wars. We don't need a lot of people to protect our borders. So there are advantages, and there are also some caveats in this kind of thing, because we are so small, they can hit us. But but that
logistically speaking, right? Logistically speaking, it's more simple. It's simpler, yeah.
So these are things that people are not aware of, and it gives a lot of advantages to economically to a group of people, 24 million people that will be residing in a very small place. It will be, by the end of the 21st century, a nation city. Mm-hmm. It will be a city. It will not, and as a city, cities have a lot of advantages, a lot, because they're growing upwards, and there are a lot of economic opportunities, a lot of social opportunities, a lot of cultural opportunities. we know the advantages. There is a very nice graph that describes how a city is having a lot of is giving a lot of. It's much cheaper to live in the city, overall speaking, than to live in the suburbs of a large city. Even though there are some things in the city that are very expensive, like like housing, but other things are much cheaper because of that, either education or whatever.
Yeah.
So we are speaking here about, if you wish, the potential of being Hong Kong of the Middle East by the end of the 21st century. Now, not everybody is aware of it, okay? But in the subconsciousness of people, they are all aware of it, because most of the people have in their houses 3-4 kids.
Yeah.
So in their subconsciousness, they feel that, well, they need to buy houses because they are, they have one house, but they need 4 houses more for their kids.
Yes, yes.
And they are in a hurry to invest in different things. So in the subconsciousness, the collective subconsciousness, we feel it. There are also fears of this very crazy region. But overall speaking, nobody could have imagined that at the year 2020 we will be a regional superpower.
Yeah.
By all parameters. There is even, you're probably aware of it, by definition, and according to different criteria, we are the 8th superpower, worldwide superpower nowadays. We had a lot of difficulties and troubles, but we are by all means part of something much bigger than our, our body of population, if you wish, and piece of land. So, and it has been developed because of those advantages I was speaking about.
Very good.
Those advantages are still working. I'm even aware of a scenario that speaks that we will reach 24 million, not at the end of the 21st century, but at the year 2065. It's not a lot, 45 years from now, it's nothing. Okay, so this is huge. And behind it and around it, there are a lot of economic opportunities. Whoever are aware of those opportunities will make a fortune. It's not like making a fortune in the US with 400 million people by the end of the 21st century, but it will be a very vibrant, very cohesive economic community, if you wish, business community, not like many other places. And one of the reasons is that, since it's a very small country, the degrees of separation are very small. The usual person is separated from another person 5-6 degrees of separation. Here in Israel, it's 1.5 or 2 people. You ask 2 people, you'll be connected to another people. And not only of that, but about already 50% of the high tier of the population are still going to the army, and they are bonding through the army, through the service in different opportunities, and that those connections and networks, goes with you. They go with you your entire life. So there are a lot of advantages. If you are aware of those advantages and you know how to maneuver around those advantages, it's a fascinating place.
And what other nations, or are you aware of other nations in similar circumstances? If we look into the future, we talked about 2050. What other similar nations do you think, or will be like sister nations? Let's call it like that.
Singapore, pops in mind immediately.
Yeah.
Okay, but they have a lot of disadvantages, Singapore. Okay, one of the most heartbreaking thing in Singapore is that their fertility rate has collapsed already,
Yeah.
and the family ties are very weak, and people are working themselves to death.
Yeah.
Here, there is a balance between family
Yeah.
and culture and work and we are constantly.
It's a nation that preserves values. You think that it's
Yeah, there is some kind of uh, checks and balances that the culture has developed during millennia, but they are coming into fruition in modern nation.
yeah,
Okay, for example, I'll give you just an example. Since we are a very small country, the weekends are with families.
yeah,
It's not like any other place. Most of the Western and of course industrialized countries, you are by yourself. You meet your families once a year or twice a year. That's it. Now this is a major characteristic
mm,
that brings a lot of opportunities because we are also a very discursive culture. We speak a lot. We share information. We don't keep the information to ourselves.
yeah,
And that sharing of information, just uh, brings the networks to be much more vital, much
mm,
more effective, if you wish. And sometimes the Israelis also are working with that feeling that it's too much. We are too much close to each other, and from time to time they would like just to travel elsewhere and don't see any Israeli around.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's another issue.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But this is part of something which is positive.
And so Singapore is one, and other nations, well, they are not so developed. For instance, if we look into other nations that you think that will be aside from Singapore, can we look into smaller nations, like from a territorial point of view, that combine progress, fertility, and values?
I think some of the Arab countries
Yeah,
uh, are becoming such a thing, and we are
such
very
as,
close to their culture. Okay,
such
we are
as,
uh,
such as.
such as United Arab Emirates, for example. That it's very clear
Yeah,
they have an advantage on us. They have oil that gave them a lot of opportunities. But they need to change. If they will not be able to change and attract business and attract the thinking and attract bright people, and they will not be able to sustain their growth forever. I'm also afraid that they are even at their peak of their
on a step
development.
forward. Yeah,
So, but we are not at that stage. We
yeah,
are, we have something which is unusual, which is uh, education. Okay, we are one of the nations that around 45% of their high school graduate continue to higher education. 45%, that's a lot. Okay, just in the UK, just to give you some sense, it's about 10-15%.
mhm,
Okay, so we are much more educated, very dense, very much networked, and we still have that. Let's say, if you wish, I'll be again blunt a little bit. That vision of messianic, if you wish, rejuvenation of of a nation, and it's still working. And even though you can see some parts of Israelis that they don't care anymore, but the basic energy is still working with that vision, if you wish. And there is
And,
another thing, I
yes.
don't want to forget. Israel is attracting a lot of Jews now from all over the world. Now, there are about 8 million Jews now worldwide. In the next 20 years, okay, Israel will be able to attract 2 million Jews out of those 8 million Jews. And if you add the very positive fertility rate of Israelis, this is something unusual, because those people are not just people. They are bringing their connections.
Yeah.
They are bringing their knowledge. They are bringing their point of view. They're bringing their global understanding of the world, etc., etc. So this is,
Yeah. Looks promising.
yeah. There are some people that are saying it's too good to be true.
um, so,
You are shocked.
no,
Are you
no.
am I the first to speak like this?
No, not at all. No. No, this is fascinating. I'm just thinking is the question I want to ask, because I'm formulating my next question, which is not on the script. That I'm thinking on, what is this going to be? So when we look into, we understood what is going to happen in Israel, right? And the future of Israel. And where is that opportunity? And that's what the question I was thinking, like, should I go in this direction or another that I'll also mention, which is, where is this opportunity? Where's the opportunity for Israel outside Israel, right? So it's clear, but in other ways, or in other words, if Israel wants to sell its products, the companies want to sell its products, if the company wants to export, because although you will have a predominant, currently probably is not so strong domestic market as other markets, but it will be in the future. But still, Israel will continue to be interested in trading and trading internationally. What countries do you think? What will Israel will have to sell? What type of economy are we going to talk about that will be focused on export? So what will be today's technology? Do you think will continue to be technology in the future, and or any other thing, or efficiency related industries? What will be the future economy of Israel from an exports point of view?
There are, of course, the obvious things that everybody is speaking about, which is our ability to solve problems.
Yeah.
Technology is just one way to solve something,
yeah.
and to sell that application. Okay, but Israelis are very good into solving problems, and the more those problems are complex, the more they are able to see clearly where to put the energy in order to solve the problem. We did it very well in software development. Okay, and it has a great an amazing fruit, which is the amount of startups that are in Israel. But this is the startup nation that everybody is speaking about. That's not the characteristic that is behind the phenomena. Okay, the phenomena is that we know how to solve problems. We have been working on that skill for 2 millennia in order to survive.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are bringing something that is very much valuable to the 21st century, and its complex issues. We were able to do it in the first 2-3 decades of Israel, in terms of security-wise, to take care of ourselves. And then we put that energy into new technologies, new industries. Now we are at the verge to do it also in sciences. More specifically, what we call the high science, not just science, regular science. Because there are a lot of difficulties in the high sciences, from nanotechnology to bioengineering, etc., to health services. Because in high science, there you need to solve not only technical issues, you have to solve philosophical issues, and we have a large body of values that we have developed for 2 millennia.
Mhm.
In our teaching, in our Torah, in our Talmud, etc., from which we can bring some ideas in order to solve really dilemmas that are going to tear apart humanity in the 21st century with very advanced high sciences. So
problem solving would be something that Israel would have to offer to the world.
exactly. Now, instead of speaking about Israelis as a technological-driven society, but a problem-solving society. Okay, some of the large corporations have already taken notice that this is one of the main characteristics of Israelis. And there are different reasons why we are that way. We are that way because we don't accept authority. We don't accept, hierarchy. And we are very discursive, and we are very blunt. And then we put our fingers on problems. We don't push them aside and under the rug. A lot of cultures are doing it. I'm traveling all over the world. I've been in different places for many years, not just as a visitor. And I've seen that people are not let's say, very, I don't want to be too hard on Israelis.
No,
but you see what I mean.
Yes.
We don't care what they think about us.
Yeah.
We care that things will work, and from with a little investment, we do much more than others.
Yeah.
And by doing, we are problem solving, mainly problem solving. That's one thing. There is another characteristic that we can really share with the world, which is we have another skill which is very much Jewish, which is, we call it amelioration of things. Okay, we are not great inventors, not in Israel. In other places we are, because we take from the surroundings. But because we used to be very poor, we did not invent the big things. We just brought together different parts of things and ameliorated those parts into a new thing.
Perfected.
Okay, so one is, again, our ability to be very blunt and to solve problems. And the way we solve problems is by ameliorating the pieces that exist already. So these are amazing traits for the 21st century.
And you think that the world knows about this?
No.
No. And do you think
The
that
world, on the contrary, uh, the world is too big.
yeah,
The
but in
world
general, yeah,
the world sees the negative aspect of those things.
of all these things.
Okay,
And
because those things have also a negative aspect.
yeah, of course.
Okay, but the positive aspect of those traits are what brought Israel to be Israel.
Where it is, yeah. And how well do you think that the government is trying to do
Now,
government to promote
the
this?
government, they don't know how to communicate those kind of things,
Yeah.
and then that's obvious. Okay, the government is,
Yeah.
as any government worldwide,
Yeah.
they don't understand reality. They have hard time reacting very quick to transformation that is happening in all domains. It's not just in technology or whatever. And generally speaking, the the nation state with its institutes is in deep troubles in 21st century. We see it now in the corona crisis. They don't know how to react. They don't know how to even take decisions.
And you think that influences negatively the willingness to do business with Israel? For instance, the case of
Yes,
the
yes, because the negative aspect of those skills are much more enhanced, if you wish, or emphasized. And that's a pity, because those that are really much more smarter, they know the positive aspect of those skills.
And
they can be communicated to the world.
Yeah. And the job we're doing with it, which is to brand the Israeli economy to the world, how much do you think this will help the Israeli economy for companies to sell more internationally or to attract investment into the country?
That's obvious. I don't think I have to respond to that question.
Okay. But okay, so
but let me tell you something else.
Yeah, okay.
The benefit is not to sell. Okay, that's a minor benefit from my point of view.
Yeah.
The major benefit is that the world will benefit
from
those kind of skills.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, nowadays a lot of people will tell you, do you know how many technologies you're using that their origin is from Israel? People don't know it.
Yeah.
So that's the main issue. The world would benefit.
Okay. So on the note of this project, and what challenges will we face? So will we face when executing this project? Do you in the show?
Now you want me to be in your place?
Exactly. And how to overcome those challenges?
Well, I think you have a very easy job, because you're taking a product that is an excellent product, but you have only to sell it. You don't have to, to help that product to be better. Just sell the advantages and the benefits and the good things of that product, and emphasize the good things. That's what I see. Now I can give you another aspect of this conversation, but this is not the time, because Israel is going to go through an amazing period in history, in its history, okay? And we are about to reinvent ourselves in history. I just finished writing a book about it, how Judaism, as a narrative, as a group of people, is beginning its fifth epoch in history. And each epoch has had a very different characteristic, the different kind of narratives, different kind of leaderships, everything was different. So we have ended the fourth epoch in Jewish history, and we have started the fifth epoch. And I'm very much interested how we are going to reshape our identity, our religion, our way of thinking. Everything is going to be different, and we will have to contribute to the world that rejuvenation.
Yeah.
Because that's what we did for millennia. Okay, and this is another epoch, but that's a very different kind of thinking. I believe that the book is about to be also.
But you want to give me the highlights?
If you want, I give you the highlights.
Yeah.
Where should I start? Well, I was speaking about 4 eras in Jewish history. The first one was the tribes kind of if you wish, of organization, of thinking, mindset, the tribes kind of mindset.
Yeah, I know them, yes.
The second one was the king's kind of mindset. Okay, King David, King Solomon, etc. We have built different kind of things, a different society, a different narrative, if you wish, etc.
Yes.
The third way of thinking was the priesthood kind of thinking. Okay, that's the Second Temple era. And the fourth epoch was the rabbinical one kind of thinking. Okay, but we have the fourth epoch has ended just a year ago, because for the first time after 2,600 years, the largest Jewish community resides in Israel for the first time after 2,600 years. And we are not tribes anymore, okay, like for the previous epochs. We are a very multinational kind of mindset, okay? In about 5 to 10 years, we will be 50% of full Jewry that will reside in Israel. And in about 30 years, by 2050, which it's tomorrow, we will be 70% of full Jewry that will reside in Israel. And we have started something else in history. We will have to redefine ourselves, who we are exactly, what is it a Jewish state, what kind of economy we are going to develop, because we are coming with a large body of thinking that was been developed for 2 millennia. Economic values, social values, and we need to take that body of knowledge and combine it into a nation state. This is a huge challenge that we are going to go through in the 21st century, and we will emerge from this century as a very different nation than most of the people think right now. Very much advanced, very much vibrant, large, not a very small piece of land with a small group of people. Very educated, very global in our way of thinking, and it's something that I'm very much interested in. It's not just from the business kind of point of view, which is a very narrow window of what's going to happen. Something huge is in the making.
Very good.
But in order to bring it to the table of your project, that needs a different way of thinking.
Very good. Professor, would you be interested in joining the CEO forum Vibe that Vibe Israel is creating for this project? So this is like basically, is to sometimes be in, whenever you're available, of course, in workshops, some events, a keynote about the brand of Israel?
As much as I can, no problem.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great. And would you like to keep on receiving information about how the project evolves and everything? Okay, great.
Another project doesn't matter.
Professor, thank you so much. Just to finalize, do you think, is there anything that I should have asked that I did not ask, or anything else you would like to add?
Well, if I can recommend something for the next interviews you are going to do, try to concentrate on the national skills that are behind the driving force of Israel. Or if you wish, don't go to skills. Try to understand the driving forces of the Israeli community, the Israeli country. There are different people will speak about different driving forces. And understanding those driving forces is what will give you a sense of the prospects of Israel in the future that you can communicate worldwide.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just taking note. Professor, thank you so much. It was a great interview.
Thank you.
And we will share this.
More optimistic, actually. Sometimes you said things, and I found myself kind of getting nervous, and then I was like, okay, this is very optimistic.
Exactly. I'm very optimistic, but I'm realistic also too. It's not, optimism, okay, because I see the driving forces of Israel. And there is a potential. It doesn't say that, God forbid, things might happen. There are a lot of challenges, okay, to overcome. But still, we are a very old culture, but in a very young body. Which is the absolute advantage on earth.
Yes. I always heard my mother saying, I wish I was, 30 and know what I know today.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good.
We are still doing the mistakes of kids. That's another
exactly.
Okay. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
תודה רבה. תשלחי לי בבקשה את ההזמנה.
ביי ביי.
Thank you.